Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. I am Pastor Gabrielle Gaines with Healing Wings Ministries, and I'm here today with our episode for the month of February. Our topic today is the impact of ignoring red flags, the impact of ignoring red flags. And we have a special guest today, someone that is near and dear to my heart, one of my favorite cousins. And she's going to talk to us today, and we're going to have a discussion about her daughter who ignored some red flags. And we're going to talk about what those impacts look like. And hopefully the nuggets that you glean from today's episode will help you identify red flags, um, do what you need to do to escape that relationship and preserve your life. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to you all my cousin, Rayshawn Gaines, to the stage. Good morning, Miss Rayshawn. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well.
I can't hear you.
Can't hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. All
Got you.
right.
Okay.
Awesome sauce. So I have introduced you to the people. I am so happy that you have accepted this invitation to come and talk with us in hopes that we can help to heal some women, to help them identify some red flags and escape um, some toxic relationships so that they can begin the healing process. And so, without further ado, um, I want you to just kind of tell me from a high level overview how red flags or the ignorance of them impacted your daughter's life.
um, okay. First of all, hello everyone. It impacted my daughter's life in a very devastating and traumatic way. It affected a lot of her close and dear relationships, a lot of her characteristics of the person of who she was didn't change, but I saw signs of her changing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what did those signs look like?
The signs of her changing.
Hmm.
She became very withdrawn. She was a very charismatic, caring person. She just saw the light in everyone. And I started to see her light dim, if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
She started withdrawing from the things that she loved. She loved beauty and makeup. Anyone that knows her knows she loved those lashes and shopping and traveling. And I just noticed once she got in the deeper parts of her getting involved in this particular relationship, she started to shy away from those things. Yeah.
Do you think that she saw those red flags or identified them at
I
any
believe
at
she
any
saw them, but just as a lot of us as women, especially when we're young, we tend to look past them because we want that validation of love.
right?
And for me, being the mother on the outside looking in, I know that myself, my ex-husband, which is her stepfather that helped raise her since she was 9, I know that we poured that love into her. But I know as we develop as young women, we tend to want um, love from our significant other, our mate, our, you know. So I think by the time she started noticing these red flags, I felt
Like
just
she
from
was too
me,
deep in, like invested in the
yeah, she was
relationship.
too deep in and she had invested so much. And then, of course, there were children involved.
Hmm.
And, you know, she may have felt that this was the best that she can do, you know.
Okay. And I think that happens to us a lot of times. I can recall several relationships that going in, I knew this just probably
Yeah.
wasn't the best for me. Like I knew right away, just based on interactions with this individual, that they didn't have a job.
Yes.
I had
Yes.
a job. And so
Mhm.
me knowing, I'm like, well, I don't need his money, but he was
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
this emotional need at that time.
Mhm.
And so I continued on. And I had this idea of what I wanted. I had written the list of all the things that I desired.
Yes. Yeah.
And so they didn't meet all the things, but they did meet pretty much 80% of those things.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
because I felt like, okay, you're not gonna get 100% no matter who you're with. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe he's the one, right? And
Mhm.
so, but they were controlling.
Yes.
They had attributes of like, while they were very doting and attentive and all of
Mhm.
these things, there was still this element of control
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they tried to have. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
but I have a very pretty strong personality. And so it would cause friction in the relationship. And
Mhm.
so it would not progress to the point where they wouldn't even define the relationship. So they would say to
Mhm.
me, oh, we together.
Yes. Yeah.
To the
That might.
outside, it was
Yeah.
like, we just friends.
Yeah.
And then it would be, well, I don't like people in my business. I'm
Mhm.
private. And so it would be left right there. And so all of my people, you included, it was like, um, I don't particularly care for him for you, but if you like it, I love it. I'm gonna support you.
Yeah.
And so that's for me, I know um that was one of those things until I got to a place where the dynamics began to shift and things got deeper, and I
Mhm.
found myself doing some things
Mhm.
and getting into some agreements that
Mhm.
I probably, well, I knew in the beginning not to do those things,
Yeah.
right? Like
Absolutely.
to the point where I entered into a business with this person.
Mhm.
And so there was monies involved. There was uh all of these things, even though the businesses were in my name, because they had put up um a financial investment as they called
Mhm.
it. Um and they were, these words were theirs, not mine. A silent investor
Mhm.
or a silent partner, um, that uh, they felt like they had more control.
Yeah.
And so as a result, um, when things didn't, when things began to change because of these businesses, I found myself um, in a emotionally drained place.
Yes.
I found
Yes.
myself full of anxiety and
Mhm.
like little cousin Shauna, like you always say she should have been my child because we're bubbly, we like want to
Yeah.
talk to
Outgoing.
everybody.
Just yeah. Yeah.
If you know us, like we the life of the party.
Always have a smile. Always have something encouraging to say to someone. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I found myself needing to go on meds just to
Mhm.
stabilize my emotions because I would be so nervous even when a car was just switching lanes. I
Mhm.
would almost panic and cause an accident because I felt like the car was going to hit me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like looking back, um as mom,
Mhm.
what was some of those, like you talked about, they began to withdraw and stop doing some of their favorite things and stop
Mhm.
going to their favorite places. They didn't travel as much. Um, how did this impact the family as a whole? Like your relationship with her, your mother's relationship, her friends.
Mhm. Well, anyone that knows my daughter and I, they know that our relationship was really, really tight. So she has also, this person also caused a rift with the relationship with her sister, and they were really, really tight. With her best friend, they've been friends since middle school. So things that they would do together, they were no longer doing them as much. Their children are the same age, so the birthday parties, the just hanging out, the play dates for the children, she started shying away from that. Now with our relationship, she would always tell me how much she looked up to me as a role model, and how, even in her employment, how she mimicked me in dressing, professionally and things of that nature, and career wise and education wise. But I noticed with us, where we talked about everything and anything, and we talked on a daily, which is crazy, because this her youngest child had told me recently he didn't remember what his mother's voice sounded like. So I went back to look for voicemail messages. We were so tight and we knew each other so well that we never really left voicemail messages. We would just see the number or the missed call or the text, and we would call each other back. And even to this day, my son and I were the same way. So conversations that we would have, it would be very short, or if the person was around, the phone would always be on speaker. So as a mother, my antennas would rise. So every opportunity that I would get, not to get in her face and say you need to leave him alone, because she already knew, but I would
Right.
force her to dig deeper inside of herself. Number one, to go back to her foundation of prayer, number
Mm-hmm.
one, and reading her Bible. And I will always tell her, you need to call back your power. I said,
Mm-hmm.
because this person is changing you. And
Mm-hmm.
even with her little ones, she was pouring so much into this person that I believe the love that she should have been pouring more into her children and developing and building that rapport with her boys, she was giving it to him. So by the time she got to them, she was drained,
Yeah.
and I can just see how, like, her joy of cooking. Anyone knows her knows she can bake, she can do hair. She was just,
That applesauce cake, baby,
girl, a jack of all trades. And I noticed, like, her love for baking, you know
begin to
that
diminish.
started shying away.
Yeah.
That's one of the things her and the boys would do together. Would She would let them help baking cakes or making breakfast and stuff, and I just noticed that it was always, she was short with them.
Mm.
We'll do it later, or get out the way. Whereas before, even if the egg didn't quite get in the batter, it's okay, go get another one. Like, her patience. And
Mm.
one thing I want to piggyback on, when you said how you have a strong personality, I do as well, like very strong will. My daughter, which I admired about her, is she always operated out of her feminine energy.
Mm.
One of her biggest endeavors in life is she just really wanted to be a homemaker. She wanted to be the stay-at-home mom, and I want to be there for my children when they go to school, and when they're home, I want to have their dinner made and do their homework. And that's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I
Absolutely.
admired her for that. But the person she got entangled with, mm-mm, he wasn't equipped, because he was so broken.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to love himself. And so a lot of the things that he inflicted on her, was his hurt and his disappointment from whomever the women in his life were. And so when she came in with this softness and this genuineness, he didn't know how to handle her,
Mm.
you know. And I think, um, whereas African American women, or us as Black and brown women, we get the short end of the stick because we've always had to carry the world on our shoulders. So we're used to being seen as strong in a different aspect from other cultures, to
Mm-hmm.
where when we're soft and we walk in our divine feminine energy, the way God designed us as women,
Mm-hmm.
um I think this particular person, in who he wasn't able to accept that, you know
Yeah.
and so that's where he was trying to with the gaslighting and the manipulation, change her to be something that she wasn't. And that's where the war began within herself, trying to be something that she wasn't.
Yeah. I think I can definitely relate to that because when I think back on um that one particular relationship, one thing I noticed started to happen is I wasn't as close with my family and friends as I
Mm-hmm.
was at one
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Because they would monopolize all of my time. If I was
Yes. Yes.
away with my family or friends, like I could simply be out with a girlfriend shopping, and they were going to call every 5 minutes.
Every 5 minutes. Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and initially you think, oh, he's into me, he
Mm-hmm.
really cares
Oh,
about
he thinking
me,
about me on my boo calling. Yeah. Yeah.
all the things, right? And so, um, I remember back when I had first met this person, right? And and I never had to pick up the phone to call. And so,
Mm-hmm.
in back in my day when we were young, the older women would always say, "Don't be calling no man if he ain't calling you, or return
Mm-hmm.
the call,
Mm-hmm.
he not that
Yeah.
into you." And so then here's this person that I never have to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
They're always calling, like multiple times in a day,
Mm-hmm.
talking for extended periods of time. And at a certain point, I realized, like, ain't no way you got a job
Right.
because you talking to me too much.
Mm-hmm.
You calling me while I'm at work. You calling me on my work phone. And I remember, like, there were some certain situations where um, my son had an appointment and I was gonna go and be. He was like, "Oh, I can come. I can come and support you."
Mm-hmm.
And that, and I'm like, "You can take off that many times." But I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Yeah, it's not a problem." And I'm saying to myself, like, I've been in the workforce a very long time. You can only have so many occurrences within a certain amount of time
Mm-hmm.
before you start to get written up
Yeah.
or uh or terminated. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you don't have no job. And then I realized that they didn't have a job because I would go to their home and they would always cook. They were always very, like, they were the perfect gentleman. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're like, oh, this is nice. Like, they would cook and they would prepare the food and then they would serve it and then they would clean it up and they would do all these things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until it wasn't. Because I realized all of that, what some might consider love bombing. So you're showing
Mm-hmm.
up, you're
Mm-hmm.
presenting yourself as this
Yeah.
person that you're really not.
Yeah.
And, and,
That's one of the things I would always mention to my daughter. Although I'm divorced, my ex-husband, he always treated me in a loving way. He's always been a protector. We're able to be friends now after the divorce, and there's still a level of respect. So she knows and she saw
what it
how
looks like.
we're
Yeah.
supposed to be treated. I remember having a conversation with her because I asked her a particular person she had dated in the past. And I said, this guy, he shows up. He's always polite. He's a gentleman. I have never seen him honk a horn and you run out. He always came to the door. He very cordial. And this is when I was married. She was dating this particular person.
Hmm.
My ex-husband didn't really care for him, but he respected him because he showed the level of respect to him first as a father.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I asked her one time, I said, why aren't you with this person? And I'm going to cringe when I repeat what she said, because I know a lot of women have said this, and I may have said it in my younger days, but she said, oh, he's too nice. And I
Mm,
said, he too nice. I said, this young man works. He has his own vehicle. When you guys go out on a date, you told me you never had to pay for anything. Yeah, he's too nice. As
mm.
opposed to what? So are the younger generation of women looking for, quote unquote, and I use that term very loosely, a thug or I know back in the day we used to call them, I'm about to age myself, roughnecks,
Mhm. Or from the Hugger Thug Club.
hug a thug, or what have you. Like, does that make you feel protected? Because at some point, I know for a fact my daughter suffered with particular this past
Relationship.
relationship,
Hmm.
um, mental, verbal, emotional abuse, physical abuse. So have we as women, and I say we because at some point
We've all been there.
I've been there, let's keep it real. um have we looked past the qualities in a man versus, oh, he has on these nice jeans, now the beards are in, he's bearded, you know he
Looking at
walk a
the
certain
outward appearance,
way. Yeah. Are we not looking for or being
quality,
open to the
character.
man that has that stand up quality, those characteristics that we need in order to be cohesive with each other, you
Hmm.
know because I don't know, I often wondered, even with having conversations, 'cause we've had many, 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 many conversations. um I think to myself, and I know I mentioned this to you, that I've mentored with so many young women, and I was able to pour into them. And I don't even want to use the term save them from whatever they were in,
Hmm.
but I was a realist with them. I gave them real time information to the best of my ability and resources to tap into. But I feel like I couldn't reach my child,
Right.
you know. So yeah.
So, with all of that being said, as a mom, even the conversations you've had with some of her closest friends,
Hmm.
what advice would you give um, to those individuals if they have a loved one that is caught up in, what society would call these days a toxic relationship?
Oh wow. Number one, not just tell them that you love them, show them that you love them. And what I mean by that is showing up for them, checking on them, not talking at them, but talking to them and with them. Because one of the turning points for me is, and my biggest prayers once my children got older, is that we develop a relationship that's respectable. So we also need to respect their choices, but at the same time, we need to get in there a little bit more and say, hey girl, I see this is going on, you know and let them know that this is a safe haven, and they're not judged on because they took this particular person in as a mate. um yeah. And keep them praying, just stay up in prayer, and mainly just reach out. Because I think the blessing for me is because of the relationship that I had with my daughter. It doesn't matter what this person did. Our relationship bond was so strong that I could feel whatever she wasn't saying to me. I can feel, and I knew. And so with me feeling and knowing that, that's what I knew to pray for. Yeah.
Okay. And to the hurting woman,
Mhm.
what would you say to her to
Love
help her
yourself.
love
Love
yourself?
yourself, because if we don't love ourselves, we're going to look for love. And it don't necessarily have to be a man. Women, please hear me. It can be in food. It can be in excessive shopping. It can be in things. So love yourself first. Get to know yourself. I notice in my singleness now, I have learned to enjoy Rayshawn in every aspect, even when I'm not my loveliest in throughout the day. And I can check myself and say, "Girl, come on now." Or even when I'm not performing at my highest, But because I made the choice to love myself, that's gonna exuberate out, and it's gonna float and onto
Yeah,
others. Yeah.
absolutely. Because I mean, that's something that I had to learn myself.
Yeah.
Because you find yourself, you'll do and go, beyond your limits for others.
Mhm.
You won't do
Mhm.
that for yourself
Absolutely.
all the
Yeah.
time. When you don't love yourself, you won't set
Te-
boundaries even for yourself.
yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
because you need those restraints. You need to say,
Yeah.
and be able to tell people no.
Uh-huh.
Um, if it's going to exert too much energy that I don't have, if I don't have the mental
Yes.
capacity to extend that to you at this time,
That's a
if I
message
don't have
right
the
there.
financial
Mhm.
capacity to extend this to you at this time, then I
Mhm.
must say no because I
Yes.
love me.
Yes,
And
without guilt.
without guilt
Without
and
guilt.
without explanation,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
no is a whole
Yeah.
sentence all by itself. And
Yes.
so when we as women can learn to love us first,
Mhm.
fall in love with our creator, Holy Spirit,
Mhm.
with Yahweh, uh,
Yes.
Elohim,
Mhm.
um, and he begins to pour into us and show us that love. um, then no one can just walk into your space. And
Mhm.
I get like, I'm 53 going on 54 in about 7 months, 6.5 months.
Mhm.
And I've never been married.
Mhm.
Never. Matter of fact, I spent my mid 20s to my
Mhm.
early 40s not dating or anything. So there was some key components that you normally develop as it relates to relationship
Mhm.
building,
Mhm.
and identifying
Mhm.
right for me versus wrong for me. Um,
Right.
but if you don't know you, you don't know what you like, you don't know
There you
what you
go.
don't like, you don't know what you're willing to deal with, you don't
Mhm.
know until you get in, and then it's like, and I know for me, I stayed longer in something
Then.
that I knew was never going to go anywhere,
Mhm.
um, for several reasons.
Yeah.
One, there was parts of me that thought nobody else was coming.
Mhm.
Two, there was parts of me that was trying to prove that what other people were saying to me, they were wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and three, I was like, well, maybe this is it. So I had
Mhm.
invested so much for so long. I stayed in that for over 7 years
Yeah.
before I finally said enough is enough and I'm done. And when I said I was done, like I was done. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
that you could say, there's nothing that you could do to get me to change my mind.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you find yourself in that place, I encourage you to seek counseling.
Mhm.
There are a myriad of therapists out there. There are some really good
Yes.
therapists out there. Um, I was in therapy the entire time and was still making these erroneous errors. And
Yeah.
I would say this: don't just be true to yourself, but if you're seeking counsel, you got to be open and honest with your counselor, because
Mhm.
if you don't tell them everything, then they can't help you
They
now.
can't help you. Yeah. Yeah.
And my first therapist that I was with at the time, when I entered into this relationship, when I made the decision to move in with this person, we had the conversation, but I lied to her.
Mhm.
So she couldn't help me navigate that.
Yeah.
Then I had a different therapist, and that therapist, um, I would begin to send recorded conversations um, of that individual and I to her, because
Mhm.
I'm like, I can't, you can't put your finger on it. Something
Mhm.
was wrong.
Mhm.
And that's when I found out I was being gaslighted.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Or
was
they were
my
like
daughter. Yeah.
dangling
Mhm.
marriage and full commitment as a carrot, because that's what
Yeah.
I desired. That's what I wanted. And so after we get caught up because we just want to be married. We
Yeah.
just want to be loved. But the key here is love you first. And
Love you first.
if you've experienced any kind of childhood trauma, whether
Oh
that was
wow.
through abandonment, neglect, through uh,
Abuse. Yeah.
abuse, whether it was
Yeah.
physical, sexual, mental, verbal,
Mhm.
then you have to go and address all of those
Yes,
things, because if you don't, you will never be able to love you the way you need to love you, so that somebody else can love you that way,
absolutely. Yeah.
because you attract who you are.
Eh,
And so if you're broken, you're going
yeah.
to attract broken. And if you're wondering why you keep finding the same guy with a different face, a different name, and a different address, it's because you're attracting who you are.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so I want to thank you for coming and spending a little bit of time with us. I pray that this has helped someone out there to identify, if it don't feel right, it ain't right.
It ain't right.
It's not right.
Not
If
right.
you always crying, hurt, trying to figure out
Sad.
what's
Ooh.
going on, if you're
Yes.
praying the same prayer month after month, year after year, if you go back and look at your journal, because I did, and you keep
Oof.
asking the same questions,
Yeah.
you already have the answer.
Yeah.
And
And
that
I
means
think
it's
that's the key. We already know. We already know.
we
Yeah.
already know.
We already know.
And so, queens out there, you are worthy of love. You deserve it. And when you are healed, God is going to send the right one.
Hmm.
And so at this time, this concludes our conversation, but it's been opening and
Yeah.
heartfelt. And if you see this and you find yourself in this place, DM me, send me a message. You can reach me. Let me get you let me get you some contact info. Uh, Reach out to me at 702-983-3112. Uh, Here we go. All right, here we go. So you call this number, leave a message, and I can refer you to some really good therapists to get you the help that you need so that you can be as whole as you can be.
Yeah.
We're here for you, and my role is to help you heal your broken wings so that you can fly and soar high.